Hello, this is a Bosendorfer 197 centimetres long grand. That's about 6'5" long, and made in 1927. As you can see, I think you call that Chinoiserie. And there are a few pianos in the UK I've seen before with this, mostly Challen grand pianos and English pianos. I don't think I've seen a Bosendorfer with Chinoiserie before. I don't recall that. Let's have a quick look around the whole piano, and obviously it's a lot of work here. I tried to find out when this was most popular. 1927, there was some that I could find. Oh, by the way, this is a Harrods. Well, at some stage, Harrods had sold this. We have a Harrods plaque there, and according to what my records, I think that was 1937. The piano is 1927, so I'm trying to sort of find out the date, and really not having a huge amount of success. This is in our storage area, by the way. That's why it's a bit untidy, but I couldn't really find out for definite. I'm very keen to learn more about this. I noticed that this was popular in the 18th century, but of course it's definitely not an 18th century piano. So 1927 according to the serial number, and this seemed to be popular. The similar style. I looked on the internet to see if I could see a piano that looked similar to this, and did find one. I'll just show you a picture of that after we've gone around the whole piano here. And that's the other side, and this is a bit damaged, unfortunately. It's the mechanical side, I think, that mainly the client wants me to look at, but I'm not sure if we can do a huge amount to the outside. We're not experts in this style. We do French polishing a lot, but this style, I'm not sure if we can improve it at all. It's dried out, and sort of on this side here, it's gone a bit white as well. So let's have a look at the top of the piano. There we have. I like it a lot because it's unusual partly, and it's obviously a huge amount of work. I always like seeing things which have taken a lot of time to do. And I don't know if that's the most typical Chinese style, but I would love you to comment if you know a bit more about this. That would be wonderful. This is crazed here too, so I really don't think we're not used to this kind of finish. I'm sure our polisher could improve it, but I think he'd probably look at it and say, "Oh dear, what can I do with that?" And then he'd probably do much more than he believes he could do. He's quite an artist, but I don't think he'd really be that confident in doing it. I say we're doing French polishing all the time. We're improving polish on all pianos, but more traditional. Obviously, rosewood is very common for the old pianos. And anyway, I've said enough about that, I think. I just want to show you this front here, because I did find a piano that had a very, very similar design to the one below the key bed here, and also quite similar to this. This is on my laptop. It may not be a very good image. It might not come out well, sorry about that. But that looks extremely similar. And some of these look similar style as well to me, to the piano we're trying to assess. And this is a Monington & Weston, according to the serial number, is 1957. So that throws me a bit, really. And so I'm not a very good detective when it comes to wood and finishes, but they finished off right down to the bottom here. So I would have said you'd have to take the frame out to do that, but maybe that's not the case. It's obviously finished off right to here. This sort of made me wonder, because it looks like paint's been spilled on the keys. Sort of maybe then it was added afterwards. I've certainly not seen a Bosendorfer in this style before. Lastly, as you see the prop sticks come off, I think it'd be too difficult to get back on. But here we see a very dark wood. It's not black, it's like extremely dark mahogany or something like that. So if you are better than, well, you will be better than me at this deciding on the case here, I'm sure. So if that's enough of a clue for you to be a wood detective or finish detective, that would be really helpful. I'll just finish off with, this is in quite a good condition generally. It's a bit crazed here and there, but not so bad. I'm not sure what colour we call this, by the way. I've seen it called mustard yellow and cream, and I'm not sure if that would be the way it was described originally. There's a bit of damage here too. There's also a couple of keys that seem to have some sort of paint on them. Well, let's get to the area which I'm a bit more confident about, and that's the touch and tone. And straight away, it's not got the power that it should have and the clarity, so straight away that tells me hammers. The touch isn't terribly bad actually, and it's not far off what it should be. I did weigh this off, I won't spend enough time already, but basically it was about 56 grams, so we can reduce that slightly by lubrication and we'll be fine, I think. But the feel of the piano though, yes, definitely needs regulating, and very weak. So in our assessment of work, these testing tuning pins is the first thing, as we said before. They're quite big tuning pins actually, but these are clearly original style Bosendorfer strings. So if they were replaced at any stage, they've replaced them with exactly the same as Bosendorfer would have done them. So I presume that if it was restored at all, it would be Bosendorfer who'd done it. Typically fruity Bosendorfer tone. These are very high tensile, by the way, and it is flat about 4 beats, so I'm always a little bit frightened of breaking Bosendorfer strings. Bosendorfer, Blutner, they're two of the top makes, which we often have problems with that. So couldn't guarantee on pitch raising. We obviously lubricate here and then pass them through that way and then back through that way. And normally we don't break them, but there is a slight chance that one of them will break. Break point isn't very good, but the hammers are the worst thing here. It doesn't sound, it's not bringing out the harmonics. It's very podgy sounding. That's the word I tend to use to describe that. Not clear, unclear. It's a bit of a bright note there. Now it's got cracks on the soundboard, quite considerable cracks on the soundboard, and I would say, along with restringers, who very honest restringers that we have in the Oxford area, who restring all the time and repair soundboards, will say that repairing cracks on the soundboard is cosmetic, unless the bridge down bearing's gone, or unless they're buzzing on the ribs, then they're not affecting the tone at all, and that's the truth, I believe. If you want to comment on that, I'm sure you do if you're in the trade. There's the serial number, by the way, and that's where the serial number is on most Bosendorfers, and if you can't find it, it's often covered up by dust or disappeared, or when the piano is refinished, wasn't put back on. So that can be a nuisance really, because the number on the bridge, which there's always a number here on the bridge as well, but I've tried to correlate that, and it's difficult to match that with anything particularly, unless if you know how to do that, please let me know. There's some spillage on the bridge here, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the tone. Obviously it's cosmetic. Underlying tone is all there really, and so let's have a look at the problem we've got with the hammers. I see a lot of the hammers have got different gaps between them. This hinge is loose here. I don't know if you can actually see it moving there. So the screws have gone loose. The hammers have moved over. I think that's mainly what's happened. And then they seem to have tightened up again, a lot of them. So there's been a change in humidity. It's got very dry at one stage, which would explain the soundboard cracks. And it's absorbed moisture again, because not many of them are loose. But obviously they need putting back into the right place. And we'll probably see on some of these hammers indistinct markings at the end, which shows that they've moved around, the different parts have been hitting. That one there is an example. It's difficult to detect a huge amount actually on this one, but you can see they're very soft, and there's indistinct in the way that they've been hitting the strings. So anyway, they are too soft and too much area hitting the strings, so that means that accounts for the very podgy sound and also the softness of them. So they could be refaced. You'd get back to say 80% or 75% of what it was originally, or you could replace them. If it was our piano, well, we would replace the hammer shanks and rollers. These rollers are very flat. They should be rounded. You can, if you By the way, wouldn't do this ourselves, but you can put things underneath to make the rollers rounded again and thread something through the middle there. Well, we just changed the rollers, but if you're in faraway place where you can't get new rollers, then you could thread something through underneath the top layer there and get some of the roller shape back, because it's a bit it's a bit notchy when it's like that. And let's have a look at the spring. The spring is working. It's bringing this is the screw for adjusting the spring. It's bringing the hammer back up. But if we change the hammers, obviously we're re-weighting everything, because the weight of the hammers will be slightly different. And this felt, it's very soft here. So it gets harder up here. You can see my thumbnails. I tried to play the guitar, so I've got long thumbnails. And in the end they're very softish as well. So we would almost definitely put Renner hammers. This is a Renner Action originally. There it says Renner. Bosendorfer use Renner Actions a lot, so you often find them in their pianos. And this age of piano, 1927, I think I've gone on long enough really. The lever's fine, there's lots of things in good condition, so hammers, shanks and rollers would be the best job to do. A cheaper job's obviously refacing the hammers and getting back to something like the tone was originally. The strings are very good, so that's not going to be a problem. But it is the hammers that are the problem, and also the action is uneven, so we would like to even that up and possibly re-weight and lubricate the centre, as we mentioned before, lubricate the rollers when we put new ones on. As I was rambling on there, I just spotted something I nearly missed, which is this line here. Now, if you're in the trade, you'll know what that is. That's where the hammer's been catching the frame. It throws me rather, which means that these aren't the original hammers, because the original hammers wouldn't have been too thick and caught the frame, obviously. So these are replaced hammers. They've been done pretty well, but quite a good job, except for the fact that this hasn't been detected, and that's quite common. So obviously it has been hitting the frame and sounding very soft. When you play softly, it may not even work properly. Let's try one or two. So played with the same sort of pressure. That one there, you see, catching the frame. Same pressure on that one. That's just about, that one's clear. So that's quite common in certain pianos where the frame and the hammer are very close to each other. That's very bad, isn't it? That's C sharp. And the action is pushed right in case you wondered if I pushed it in properly. The pass there is all right. There's one or two bad ones there. So that's been happening ever since the hammers were changed. So that's an assessment of a Bosendorfer 197 centimeters long grand, made in 1927 according to the serial number. And Chinoiserie, I must admit I'm at a bit of a loss because I haven't had experience with these at all, hardly. So if you can help, it would be wonderful if you're listening to this and could find out more information about it. Now, we talked about the action, which is what I'm more confident about. We talked about the hammers touching the frame. To be fair, it might be that the hammers have squashed a bit and then touched the frame afterwards. When they were put on, they weren't touching. But obviously, there needs to be good clearance between the hammers and the frame in case that happens. Now, the underlying tone of this piano is typical Bosendorfer, so no problem saying it's going to restore really well. It's really just the hammers and the shanks and the rollers letting down both the touch and the tone, well, mainly the tone, because the weighting of the action isn't too bad. Bosendorfer is really one of our very favourite mates. They're such wonderful pianos. Even being out of tune and with the hammers being not really in need of work and not really producing good harmonics at the moment, not hitting it clearly, I should say. Just too much hammer hitting the string, and too soft as well. So it'll be a wonderful piano when the work's been done on it. Thank you very much for listening.